Hello guys, we are back with another day of live commentary. Zach and Kostya still playing in Italy, still playing in Montesilvano. Yesterday was an interesting game day for them because both of them played against GMs and both of them had very interesting games. Maybe Kostya not really, but the result was decent and he can be happy with himself. And we see him arriving at the board. We also see that he went to a barber shop, so he got a fresh trim. So that was probably his preparation for the game today. We also see Zach shaking hands with his opponent. Today Zach is playing... Oh, and I didn't change the title for Zach. Okay, that's not great. Is there any mod in the chat for Zach? Do you know if it's still possible to change the title? I don't know that. And we see the first move. So let's wait for our live board to update. It is exactly 15:45, so the moves should come in any second now. So Kostya played d4, I believe. I think Kostya played d4. But the moves are not happening yet on the live board. They should come in any seconds now. In Zach's game we see a French. And in Kostya's game I think we see... What do we see? I don't know. I do not know what we are seeing. So Zach definitely has a lot of theory, but it's hard for me to keep up with both of the games from the openings if I just have to make the moves manually. I'm not entirely sure which line that even is. It's some kind of... okay, it's the advanced French with bishop b4. So yeah, the moves should happen any second now, but I'm not sure why they are not. Okay. Yeah, they indeed finished with the opening and still we're not able to see. Okay, let's check on the delay. Yeah, the delay is fine. So they are even further into the future. They are 15 minutes ahead of us. But yeah, the live boards are not updating. I will refresh them real quick. Now I have to... Yeah, no moves here. I think on the other board it will be the same. Yeah, no moves are happening yet, but it should start pretty soon. Yeah, no, today we will not do Olympiad coverage. We will cover the games between Kostya and between Zach, who are playing in Montesilvano. And I talked to this with Kostya yesterday on stream, and Kostya said one thing which was very interesting. He said that for him it's way more fun to look at games from his friends. So do not look at games played on a top level. So obviously they are great players and they are also they are playing very interesting games. But Kostya said for him it's way more fun to watch games of his friends and cover games of his friends. And I agree with that. Yeah, you live 10 minutes from where he is, yes. So you can definitely visit Zach and also Kostya. So they are always very happy if people approach them to take photos with them, and you might even end up on Zach's story. If you take a photo and post it on your Instagram story, I think you have very, very high chances of being famous after that, of being uploaded to Zach's story. But yeah, I'm not quite sure why the games are not updated on the live board. So if nothing is happening on the live board in 10 minutes, then I will, or maybe in 5 minutes, then I will go back and just try to put the moves in manually. I could also try to do that right now, but it's maybe not very easy. So we have a lot of moves happening, and Zach seems to be in his opening prep because Zach's opponent is taking some time right now for the first time in the game. And yeah, now I probably should mention against whom they are playing. So Zach today is playing against Elia Bagamatsky. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce that, but he's playing against Elia Bagamashi from Italy, and he had a tough start to the tournament. He only had half a point out of 3 games, but then in round 4, round 4, he actually beat a GM. So that was very, very great. And I think that was probably one of the best results for him in his entire life, because he is just like me, born in 2006, I believe. I will quickly check if I'm right, but I'm pretty sure that I'm right. But yeah, I'll just check. But it should be 2006. Yes. Rating 2047, and he's born in 2006. He's getting 13 rating points right now, which is pretty nice. Pretty nice. And yeah, no moves are happening on the live board. Is it lagging? Are you talking about the boards or like the audio or my camera? So are you able to hear me? Is everything fine with my camera and with my voice? I think it should be, but also I don't know. Yeah, with the live boards, I'm not sure what's going on there. So then maybe I'll just have to put in the moves manually. Maybe that's the way to go. Audio is good. Nice to hear. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure. Not entirely sure why the moves are not coming in. It's a little bit weird. It's a little bit weird. Okay, I think I'll wait I'll wait 3 minutes, and then after that, then I'll put in the moves manually. And if we have to keep continuing like that, then we always have to pay attention to the cameras, and it will be fine, but still it's a little bit annoying to always do that. So it would be better if the live boards would start the games pretty soon. Yeah, and on the other hand, on the right side on the bottom, you can see Kostya playing against his opponent. The opponent is kind of blocked because Zach is in the way, but it is what it is. So if Zach is leaning forward, just like he's doing right now, then we're maybe not able to properly see Kostya's opponent, who is also an international master, just like Kostya. He has 2408, and he's an IM from the Netherlands. He's on 3.5 out of 5, which is a decent result for him. But it's not as good as Kostya. So Kostya seems to be in form. He's on 4 out of 5 he has, and I think he will continue to play pretty good chess, and we can be excited for his game today. So yeah, the moves are not happening. Oh, that's a good question. Is it just the streamer boards? I think it shouldn't be. I think it shouldn't be only the streamer boards. I don't know. I will just quickly check actually. So let's go back and select another board. Oh, the other boards are working. Oh, that was a statement, not a question. Oh, okay. Yeah, that is very unfortunate because the streamer live boards are the most important live boards. So, okay, then we have to do this differently. Then I will quickly go back and try to catch up with the moves. So on Kostya's board, I have to lean over quite a lot to put in the moves. So let's move all of this around a little bit. Okay. Yeah, now I think I'll just go back a little bit. Oh, no, no, yes, 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 the boards are working. Everything is happening so fast. Nice, nice. I just wanted to... Yes. Yes, that is very, very good. So if someone fixed that from Italy, from Montesilvano, one arbiter or something like that, then thank you very much. And that's very important. Very important. Okay, now there's so much chess to talk about, and that's very good. So, but let's first of all just go back. So let's start from the top. So in Zach's game, we had e4, e6, French defense. Zach went for d4, d5, and now knight c3. There are many lines against the French. You can take, you can push, you can go knight c3, knight d2, and there are also a lot of other moves. Knight c3 is a pretty good line. Bishop b4 has been played, and now Zach went e5. And after that, c5 has been played, a3 attacking the bishop. The bishop took on c3, creating those double pawns on the c file. And after knight e7, queen g4 happened. So this was Zach's prep. You can see that because they are both still up on the clock. So they both have more time than they started with, which is indicating that they know the line and they probably prepped this line. So queen g4, queen c7. And now Zach took the pawn on g7. So this is a very, very sharp line. And as you say, he needs to win here. And that's what he wants to do with this aggressive opening choice. He is definitely ambitious and he's definitely trying to play for a win. Rook g8, Zach takes on h7, c takes d4, knight e2, knight c6, and now f4 has been played. Elia took on c3, and now queen d3, bishop d7, rook g1, long castle, and now it's Zach's move. Okay, this is a very interesting position. So, let's first of all do the count. Both sides have 6 pawns at the moment, but this pawn on c3 is very, very weak, and it will fall in the next moves. Maybe even right now. So knight takes c3 makes a lot of sense here, a lot of sense. So that's a possibility, and I think that should be played actually. You can also develop maybe bishop e3 or something like that. But the question for white is, what do you do with your king? So you will be up a pawn, and you will also have the bishop pair, which are two very good things. But the question is, what is your king doing? Because the rook here already moved to g1, so it's not possible to castle to the short side. Put your king on g1, that's not possible. But also, you don't really want to castle to the other side, because the b file is open, the pawn a3 is weak, and also the c file will be open if this pawn is captured, at least half open, just like the b file. And the king will be pretty open if it's on c1. So I think if you want to bring your king to safety, what Zach definitely needs to do in the near future, then he has to go like king g1 at some point, and there it will actually be safe. And this is a very dynamic position. So Zach is up a pawn, and Zach has this pass pawn on the h file, because Zach immediately took both of the pawns on g7 and h7. That's a very standard idea in the French defense, and this is a very, very double-edged position. So I believe that the result, which is the least likely here, is a draw. So I think we will definitely get a fighting game, which would be very, very nice. So now, after long castle, Zach is taking his time here. And then let's go over to Kostya's board, where also a lot of moves have already happened. They are also already on move 13. So I remember yesterday, Zach only had, I think, 20 minutes left after 14 moves. And now it's already move 13 and he has 1:30 on the clock. So that's definitely an improvement. So today he's not in time trouble on move 15, which is very important. So on Kostya's board, d4 has been played. We had knight f6, and after c4, e6, knight f3. Now we did not get d5, which would be like the standard move here, which is also the main move by far, but we got c5, which is also an interesting approach in this position. And Kostya immediately goes d5 to grab some space in the center, and after d6, knight c3, here black took, Kostya took back, and now we have a reverse Benoni structure. So the Benoni structure always happens if the e pawn is exchanged for the c pawn. So we had this quite kind of a lot in this tournament. I think Zach and also Kostya both had a Benoni structure on the board in one of their games. And white basically wants to play in the center with e4 and f4 and something like that, and just claim the space in the center. And black wants to play on the queen side, because there's this majority here. So the pawns will advance, and then black will try to create a passed pawn in the future, which would be pretty good in the endgame. So if a lot of pieces get traded off, then black might have some small advantage, because it's very easy for black to create a passed pawn with just pushing the c pawn up the board. So takes, now g6 has been played, knight d2. The idea is to support this e4 idea. e4 has been played indeed, and after short castles, bishop e2, rook e8, castles, just like some normal developing moves, very, very standard for the openings like this. So knight bd7. Engine does not think this is the best move, but I think it's totally fine, so there shouldn't be anything wrong with this. So a4 has been played. That's a great move, because it's restricting black's idea of playing b5. That's what black wants to do. Black wants to go b5, maybe a6 to protect the pawn first, and just grab some space on the queen side. And here a4 is a good move to kind of prevent that. So a6, and now rook a3 has been played, and this is a very interesting idea. So yeah, rook a3, and you'd probably want to I've not seen this idea actually. Maybe I should have seen it at some point, but I think that I did not see it in this particular pawn setup. So it's a very interesting idea, and Kostya also seems to still kind of know the position, or at least he knows what he has to do. But that makes a lot of sense because he plays positions like this basically all of the time. So rook a3, and I think there are multiple ideas. You could play rook b3 somehow in the future and just put some pressure on the b file onto the pawn on b7. So that's definitely possible. But I think what Kostya wants is to eventually move over the rook to some square on the king side to maybe even start a king side attack. So that's probably more what he wants to do. Now rook b8 happened, and now h3 has been played by Kostya. So now it's not possible to put the rook on h3, but it takes some time. h6 on the board. It takes some time to move the knight away, and you have to first of all protect the pawn on e4. So you have to move the knight and then kind of put your rook over. So that takes a lot of time. So maybe the idea is just to go rook b3. But I'm not entirely sure what he wants here actually. But I think this should be a very standard idea in this pawn structure. But I'm not very familiar with that, I have to admit, because I don't play positions like this from either side. So I'm not entirely sure if he wants to go for here or maybe like to g3. I think both are reasonable, and we will definitely see in the future what will happen there. So, meanwhile, we have some interesting questions in chat about Zach and about the fact that he is single. So on that, I cannot help you. I really can't. But yeah, you might have to ask him in the next streams why that is. But with that, I cannot help you. So, h6 has been played by Mark. And what's the idea behind that? I think the idea behind that is to make room, go to h7 with his knight, and then kind of reroute his pieces a little bit. So maybe we'll even see some move like f5 at some point. So if you move your knight away, then first of all, another piece could land on f6, so you can use the f6 square to kind of reroute your pieces. Also, you can go to g5 with your knight. So that would probably be one explanation why he would like to play h6. So maybe that's his plan. But yeah, otherwise maybe he also just wants king h7 and then for his king to be kind of safe. I think that's probably not it, to be honest. But yeah, I don't really know what he wants to do here. Maybe he also wants to advance his pawn to g5. That would be a lot more aggressive than the other plans. But maybe you can play like that and just try to go for some kind of attack yourself. Or at least you just want to grab some space. Maybe that's what you want to do. So g5 is definitely possible. My recap of Kostya's game was too fast. Okay, I will go back. I will do it one more time just for you. So yeah, I did it pretty fast, so to kind of catch up with the live action, but I think now the players are taking a think. So Zach and also Kostya are actually thinking for the first time in this game. So now we do have some time, and I can definitely recap Kostya's game so far. So Kostya started with d4, and we had knight f6. Now c4 has been played, e6, and now knight f3. This is what Kostya has played, I think, 3 times already in this tournament. So I think this was on the board in three of his games. And in both of the other games we had d5. So Kostya actually played this against Zach, and Zach went d5 here. But today we had c5. That's a different approach. And now Kostya immediately played d5, which is the main move in this position. And now white has some spatial advantage in the center. And after d6, which is also just a normal developing move, knight c3. Here black took and Kostya took, and now we have the classic Benoni structure, but this time it's a reverse Benoni. So usually this pawn is on e5 and this pawn is on c4. So that's the classic Benoni, but here it's the other way around. So white's pawn will go to e4 in the future, and then we will have the reverse Benoni position. So yeah, here g6 happened. The idea is to develop the bishop to g7, knight d2 to prepare e4, and also to potentially put your knight on c4 in the future, which would be the best square for the knight. And to go for that idea, after some developing moves, rook e8, this is all pretty logical. You just develop all your pieces. And after short castle here, we had knight bd7. The engine does not really approve of that move. And here it says it's plus 1.2, but I think that's just not true. I have no idea why this should be plus 1.2. So the engine is sometimes, it's not the best engine first of all, and then sometimes it's also just not telling the truth. So if you put this game into an analysis board and not a live board, you might actually have a different evaluation of the game. So that was some kind of issue in other streams, so not for this tournament. So I think in this tournament the engines on the live board are actually very accurate, to be honest. But here plus 1.2, I have no idea why that would ever be plus 1.2. And a4 was not the best, so I'll just check with the engine what was the best move. H3. Yeah, and after h3, obviously you just have a great position and you're close to winning. So yeah, that's not true, and here we shouldn't listen to the engine. And in some positions, the engine just prefers the white position. For example, in the King's Indian. So in all of the King's Indian positions, the engine just says white is better, and because of the space advantage. And here white also has space advantage, but I don't think that this is plus 1.2. There's no way that this is plus 1.2. So a4 has been played, and after a6 we had this interesting idea, rook a3. So I have not seen this idea in positions like that. And I think Kostya knows this idea, and maybe he even prepped it. So he did not find this on the board, I believe. And rook b8 has been played, and now h3 to prevent this knight g4 move, which would have been a possibility. Knight g4, and then you want to put your knight on e5. But right now, there would still be f4, kicking away the knight, and that would not be a very good position, because now if the knight is on e5, f4 is actually trapping the knight. So before you were not really able to go knight g4, because after h3 you just kind of wasted a move. But h3 is always a useful move. You're guarding the g4 square, and yeah, that is pretty nice to have in the future, because now you have time for some prophylaxis to just play this useful move that you might need in the future, and that's definitely possible. h6, black kind of does a similar thing, and now Kostya plays queen c2, developing his queen, also overprotecting the pawn on e4, and now you can eventually go for this idea of playing knight c4, attacking the pawn on d6, and also threatening to go a5. So this was an interesting position, because here Kostya had the option to play a5, and that's pretty nice if you manage to do that, actually, because now the knight will go to c4, and black will not be able to kick away the knight, because the pawn can never go to b5, because then it will be captured en passant. So this is always a very nice strategical move, because you're kind of blockading the pawn on b7, which will always be a weakness, and also the b6 square is also weak, because this pawn already moved. So a5 would have definitely been a good try here. But Kostya played queen c2, which is definitely also fine. If you have a chance to go for something like that, you should strongly consider it, I believe. So to prevent this, black could have played a move like b6, and now a5 is not possible, because then you might not even take, you might go b5, and I think there black would actually be doing pretty well. So this is a standard idea. If white goes a4 and you already have the pawn a6, to prevent white from playing a5, you play b6 yourself. So here his opponent did not do that. Also, because he had the chance to do it even here after a6. Here it was also possible. So I think I would have went for it, maybe even right now, and then just play knight c4 at some point. So queen c2, knight c4, and I like positions like that. And the pawn on a5 is defended a lot of times from the knight on c4 in the future, the rook on a1, but maybe this is slightly too early. I'm not sure. It's also fine to just don't do anything on the queen side with your pawns, and then try to play on the king side, or maybe in the center. Also completely fine. So a6, we have this interesting rook a3 move, rook b8, and now after h3, h6, we had queen c2. Now it's Mark's turn, and he is spending some time here. They, they have both spent approximately 10 minutes for this game, which is totally fine on move 14. But yeah, then if we look over to the export, we have the same problem as always. So yeah, every stream I say this, and also every stream I say that I say this every stream. I hope that was understandable for you. Zach is taking too much time in rather obvious positions. So this position is not obvious at all. And here it's maybe fine to take some time here actually. So maybe I shouldn't complain again already about his time usage here. Okay, but he plays bishop e3. He spends 22 minutes and bishop e3. And as you can see, that's a missed opportunity. So he did not take the pawn on c3. I don't know if that's the best move, but in a blitz game, I think like 95% of people would just play knight takes c3, just take the pawn, take it while you can. I think that would have been a good move. So I don't even know what the exact idea is. So if you take the pawn on c3, there will definitely be some kind of counterplay, because the white king will always be a little bit weak. So that's what black is kind of playing for. But if you have this position with the knight takes c3, and now imagine the white king would be safe. So if the king is on h1, I think white is very close to winning already, because white has the bishop pair, white has the open, or maybe the half open b file for his rooks, and white is also up a pawn. So the only problem for Zach is that his king is weak, and it takes a lot of time to put his king to safety. And king safety is the most important thing in chess. So if you up a queen but your king is mated, then you still lost the game. So the number one priority of every chess player is to have a safe king. And here Zach does not really have that, but in exchange for that he has a lot of other assets in his position. So he has the bishop pair, and he also has this great black squared bishop, which could land on d6 or something like that in the future. Also knight b5, knight d6 is a threat at the moment. So I think Zach is doing well, even though his king is in the center and it's not easy to get out of there. It's also hard for black to quickly create play, because this bishop on d7 is a horrible piece. It's just like a big pawn at the moment. So black also needs to spend a little bit of time to get some activity here. So I think this would probably have been a good move. I don't know if it's the best move, but it's definitely a good move. Also, you don't have to take with the knight. You could also consider to take with the queen, which would also be fine. And then you are kind of pinning the knight, because black never wants to trade queens, I believe, because after that the king is not that weak anymore in the center, and it's fine that the king is in the center, because the threats to the king are not as big as they were before with the queens on the board, because without a queen you can not go for a mating attack, and that's why it's fine to have your king in the center if you trade the queens. So after queen takes c3, which probably should be the best move here, black cannot move the knight, and because of that black cannot move this bishop, and I think this position is pretty good for Zach. But also his opponent still seems to be in theory, so this is definitely a very sharp line, and his opponent would still have known a lot of moves. So maybe Zach also thought about that. So maybe Zach thought probably it's best to take the pawn, but maybe my opponent knows that that's best, and he still knows like 5 or 6 more moves. And it's always not great to run into your opponent's preparation, because if you do that, it's very unfair. Your opponent knows everything, and you have to think for your own. And that's not a great situation to be in, not at all. So, yeah, that's maybe one of the things that Zach took into consideration here. So bishop e3, has been marked with this missed opportunity cross. So now there should be a fairly good move for Zach's opponent. And if we take a look at the eval bar, it's already better for Zach's opponent. It's minus 0.6 according to the engine, which I have here, and that's already a decent advantage for Black, and not great news for Zach at all. So there is some very good move here, but I'm not entirely sure what that could be. Maybe you can play knight f5 to attack the bishop, and white does not really want to trade off that bishop because that's the strongest minor piece that you have at the moment. It probably is the strongest piece, I'm not even sure about that, but I think it should be. So knight f5 comes to mind, but yeah, apart from that, I'm not very sure. You could also reroute your knight to c4, definitely possible. Maybe just play a quiet move, but I think that's too slow. That shouldn't be the right move here. But maybe it is actually, because there is some pressure on the pawn on a7, and the king is in the c file, which will open up if the queen takes on c3 or if the knight takes. So maybe now it's time to do some prophylaxis and to just play king b8 first of all. You do that a lot of times when you castle long, that you move your king one step further to the corner. So white always does that, so king c1, and then to just go one step further to put your king into safety. So that's what happens a lot of times. Bishop e3, and now there is an opportunity for Zach's opponent, but I think he will spend some time because this move seems to be new for him. So while he's thinking, we will go over to Kostya's game, where g5 happened. So that's a very interesting idea. That's grabbing some space on the king side. And the question is, what is Black's plan after that? I think he doesn't want to make any more moves with his pawn on g5, because first of all it's not possible right now, because after pawn g4 the pawn would just be captured and you get nothing in return. So that's not what you want. And okay, of course, yeah, immediately plays f4. That's very interesting. So now the position will definitely heat up, and the pawn takes, and now Kostya takes back with the rook. And now we have very interesting position. So the pawn on e4 is a little bit weak because there's no pawn behind the pawn, and it's very hard to defend this pawn in the center. So you always have to keep an eye on that. So the knight is attacking, the rook is attacking, and you can basically never advance it to e5 because all of the black pieces are controlling the e5 square. So that's a lot of arrows because one, two, three, four, and maybe even 5 pieces control the e5 square. So the e5 square will definitely play a huge role in this game. So I think we might even see knight to e5 right now, because that's the best square for a knight. The best square for a knight is in front of an IQP, but this is not an IQP, and actually I don't know what the English word is for that. Maybe I just forgot. In German it's rückständiger Bauer. That's the German word. But in English, how do you say that? How do you say that this pawn is... It's not an isolated pawn, but it's just behind this pawn on d5. and it's not possible to really defend it with a pawn. How do you say that in English? Because I don't know. Maybe I should know, but I think I just don't remember. What's this called? Does anyone know? Is there even a word for that in English? There has to be. There has to be. But I'm not even sure about that. But yeah, anyways, 95 definitely. Oh yeah, it's just a backward pawn. Yeah, obviously. Yeah, that was my mistake. Backward pawn. Okay, so Kostya has a backward pawn, and the knight belongs in front of the backward pawn. So this is a great square for the knight. But in return for that, the black king is fairly weak because the g pawn is gone. So now I think the rook will go to g3, and then Kostya will start some kind of attack on the king side. And I think that will be a very exciting game. So already right now the position is very, very double-edged. So it's not like yesterday where Kostya had already made a draw at this point. Only after 13 moves yesterday he made a draw. So this is not the case today. I think there will be no quick draws here. Both sides are playing for a win in this position. And it will be a very good game, I believe. Let's go over to Zach's board, where we see Queen a5, which is also a missed opportunity. But what was the better move? So Queen a5 is at least interesting because it's preventing white to take on c3. You might think you can just take and then trade the queens, and after that you're just good. But you always have to calculate until the end. So if you calculate, you take, and then after the queen trade, you're fine. That's absolutely not the case, because here there is a fork. The pawn advances, attacks the knight, attacks the bishop, and you will lose a piece, and with that the game. So Queen a5. The idea is to prevent some piece to take the pawn. Oh, and I see in chat the best move was d4. Wow, bishop e3, now d4. I thought about suggesting that move, so I did look at it, but I thought this shouldn't be possible. But it makes sense. So you're already sacrificing a pawn because some piece can take on c3. You might as well sacrifice another pawn. Just go d4. That's a crazy move though. That can be captured by the knight or by the bishop, but it should definitely be captured. So I think knight takes d4 is the most logical move. And now what you're noticing is that the rook has been opened up, and that's a very good thing for you, because the white king is still in the center, just like it has been for every single move of the game. The king is not safe yet, so it's a pretty good idea to open up the files that are near to the king. So this is open, and the rook is also looking at the queen at the moment. So that's a pretty good rook here. And you're, as white, you're maybe not sure what to do with your king. And now also, because the d5 pawn went away, you have the d5 square for your knight. So knight d5 is possible. Apparently not really right now. Maybe because of knight b5 or knight f5 even. Maybe knight b5 is better. Yeah, knight b5, knight d6 looks pretty good actually. Okay, but this is very difficult to see. If you don't know this, then you have to spend at least 15 minutes to calculate here. maybe 10, but you have to spend some time. So you can spend time and try to make d4 work, and you might actually succeed with that. But what Zach's opponent is doing also makes sense, to just play on intuition, just play queen a5. So he did not know this move. That's why he spent like 5 to 6 minutes. But he just made a quick move, which looks kind of logical. Queen a5, and now it's very hard to win the pawn on c3 without losing the pawn on a3. So you could play like rook d1 with the idea of taking this pawn here, but then you're also just dropping the a3 pawn. So queen a5 is, in my opinion, a pretty good move actually. Here it says missed opportunity, but that's because this d4 move has not been played, and who can blame Zach's opponent for that? So d4 is pretty thematic right now, but still, you're still sacrificing your pawn. And that's very risky actually. Very risky. And in the meantime, I will pin this message here. I always forget to do that. I have no idea why. I thought of it like immediately before I started the stream, but now I forgot. So now on the Chess Dojo channel you have a pinned message where you can see what kind of tournament that is. But I'm sure if you have watched some streams, then you should be familiar with the tournament and also with the amount of rounds and just with everything what's happening there in Italy, Montesilvano. So we might also want to have that in Zach's chat. I'm not entirely sure if it's necessary. Maybe not. Maybe not actually. But if there's a mod and if you want to pin some kind of message, then you definitely can. So yeah, you are definitely a mod. But I think Zach doesn't really need a message like 9-round classical Swiss. I'm not sure if it's necessary. So queen a5. It's Zach's move here, and for me it's not easy to even come up with a move. Maybe you just ignore the pawn on c3 at first, because sooner or later you will win it anyway. There's no way that this pawn will be on c3 in like 20 moves. I really don't think that. Zach will sooner or later just somehow attack the pawn on d4 and then just win it. So you don't have to take it right now. So you can play like knight d4 or something like that, but you actually have to be very careful because there is some trick. So knight b4 is a move. I'm not sure if it makes sense, maybe not, but it's a move. So if white just does, I don't know, a normal move like h3, shouldn't be a very good move, then I'm not sure if knight b4 is the right move, but it's possible. So knight b4, you are attacking the queen, but you are just completely losing. Question is why? Why is this so bad? You attack the queen, and if white takes, then you can take the rook, and here I think black has a pretty solid position, and your queen is attacked. So the question is, what does the engine think is so good for white here at the moment? because I don't know. Oh, I'm very sorry. This pawn is hanging with a check. I did not see that. Yeah, that's just a check. Yeah, then it's not possible at all. I thought, just to illustrate my point, I thought after knight b4, it's not possible to take here because of this knight takes c2, and the knight is pinned. It's not able to take. The queen is pinned. It's not able to take the knight, and this will be a fork. And after a king move and the trade of queen, you will just win the rook in the corner, escape with your knight, and then be up a full rook. After that, you will just win. So that's what I thought, but yeah, this is a check. So queen takes c3 would be with a check. So knight b4 is not possible at the moment. Okay, but still I believe that queen a5 is a pretty good move. And now you really should consider to play king b8 at some point. And once you do that, then knight b4 becomes possible again. So king b8, and then knight b4 is some kind of idea, but you don't have to go for it. You don't have to go for it at all. What you might also want to do is putting your bishop on b5. So right now the bishop on d7 is horrible, doing nothing, just looking at the pawn and also at the knight. But the knight can go out of the way. So if the knight moves away and the bishop appears on b5, then it would be a huge achievement for black. Because if black manages to trade the light squared bishops, then it's at least a little bit better for black than it was before. Because this is a horrible bishop on d7, and the bishop on f1 is also not great at the moment, because it's not developed and all of white's pieces are kind of in the way. But in the future it could definitely become a solid piece. So you just have to move this pawn and then go bishop g2. And then it's already a pretty good piece. And it's putting some pressure on the pawn on d5. So yeah, to put your bishop on b5, first of all wins the tempo because it's attacking the queen. But yeah, queen a5. Zach is spending a lot of time here. 53 minutes. The position is not easy, but after in this position he had, oh wait, oh yes, in this position Zach had more than 1 minute 30 on the clock, and now he only played bishop e3, and after queen a5, he just played bishop f2. Okay, yep, that makes sense actually. Bishop f2, yeah, I think that's a good move. And let's see how much time he spent for that. Wait, did he only spend 31 seconds for bishop f2? Maybe the board was just not updated. But no, he spent a lot of time, no? Yeah, he spent more than 31 seconds. So the live board is wrong here. I also have not seen that. So bishop f2, just dropping back with your bishop, and now you are renewing the threat of taking the pawn on c3. So if king b8 happens, then maybe queen takes c3 is possible, because right now, after the queen trade, there is no pawn fork anymore, because the bishop is on f2. That's basically the whole idea behind that move. So now you have to play something concrete. But what is this something concrete? So concrete would be the move d4 again. And maybe actually if Zach's opponent does not play d4 here, then he might just be worse, because after queen takes c3, white is winning the pawn, but he's also winning a move, because the black queen moved to a5, and it does definitely not want to trade, so it has to move back to like c7 back. So you played queen a5, queen c7, and achieved nothing, basically. And in the meantime, the white bishop developed to f2, which was definitely an improvement. So queen a5 maybe actually not the best. So if you have to play d4 here, then it would have been way better to just do it immediately in this position. But yeah, queen a5, bishop f2, and now I'm not really seeing what black can do apart from play d4, which is great news. So d4 is very, very brave move to play, and it's so double-edged after that. But as I said, if you don't play that, then queen takes c3 will happen, and white will just have a very nice position, because then, as you say, g4 might happen, which is a logical move. First, you're advancing your pawns on the king side, and you're also taking away the f5 square from the knight on e7. So g4 does definitely make sense here. So yeah, g4 is a nice move. So g4 was the best by engine just before this. That's what you're basically saying? Yeah, I can see why. That does definitely make sense. And then also if you go g4, you might push the h pawn up to h5, and then you have the classic bathtub pawn formation. So here, let's just set me up. So this is the bathtub. I think you can see why. So it kind of looks like a bathtub. So this is the bathtub pawn structure. If you didn't know that, now you do. And it's a pretty good pawn structure, actually. Two of the pawns are defended by the other pawns, and the good thing is that this pawn formation takes up a lot of squares. So there are no squares in the position which two pawns are attacking. So this and this and this and this and this, all of those squares are attacked by the pawns. So all of those squares, and those are a lot of squares. So this is a pretty good pawn structure. Those two pawns might be a little bit weak, but there's always like a small problem, so you can't have the perfect pawn set up. There's always something which is not perfect. So this is one of the better pawn structures to have. So yeah, g4 was preferred before bishop f2, and that makes sense, but I think practically bishop f2 is even better, because now you are forcing your opponent to make a decision. Like queen c3 is a serious threat in this position, and I'm not sure if there's anything apart from d4 after which black is not worse by a pretty big margin, actually. So I will check with the engine what the top move is here. Yes, d4 is, I'm always saying d5, right? I'm not sure, but I'm talking about d4. So d4 is the top engine move, and then after knight d4, the engine wants to trade and go bishop c6. Then there's this very annoying pin on the queen. And here after this, queen a4, the bishop is hanging, and there is definitely some play for black. The knight will go to d5 to attack the queen, and the king is pretty awkwardly placed in the center, and the black pieces are very well coordinated and are pretty active, so black should have very good counterplay in this position. So d4 is a very good move, but I doubt that he will play it actually, because if he wants to go d4, then you should have done it before. So right now I think it's not great actually to go for that. But we will see. Maybe now he's realizing that Queen a5 was not perfect if you want to play d4. Then you should have just done it immediately, because then your queen is just placed way better on c7 and you don't really have to waste a move. So bishop f2 has been played, and on Kostya's board 2 moves have been played. So Kostya played knight f1. The idea behind that is to put his knight to f5, and he does not want to go for this knight c4 idea anymore, because the knight on e5 is just covering that square and it might trade, and then the other knight could land on e5. And I will just show that real quick so that it's easier to understand. So in a position like this, the other knight could land on e5, and this trade favored black probably, because now the good knight from white is basically gone, and this knight is also decent, but it's not really attacking anything, it's just defending and looking at their own pawns. So knight f1 has been played by Kostya. He wants to go to e3, but probably to g3, and from there maybe advance to f5, maybe in the future also to h5, but definitely to go to some active square in the future. Now knight g6 is on the board. The rook is attacked, so the rook has to move. And where do you go? So you can't go back all of the way to f1 because the knight is standing there. So you basically have to decide between f3 and f2. And I think it should be more logical to go to f2, but you have to be slightly careful with some tactics evolving around bishop d4, but right now there's nothing happening there. You just have to be a little bit careful. So rook f3 is kind of standing a little bit an annoying square, because first of all the bishop is kind of looking at the rook, but more importantly, after rook f3, if the knight goes back to e5, it's attacking the rook again, and there might be a repetition, but I'm not sure if the players want that here. But maybe they actually do. Maybe Kostya is fine with a draw again today. Chat, what do you think? If there's a draw offer right now from his international 2400 master opponent, do you think Kostya would take it? Yesterday against the GM he did, with the white pieces. But today he's not playing against the GM, and he's tied for first place right now. So if he's winning today, then he will probably end up on the first place and being the only first place. So that would be amazing. So winning today would be very, very important for his tournament, and then he might also be the favorite to win after that. So winning would be amazing, but a draw would also not be a bad result. We see rook f2, I believe. Yes, rook f2 is on the board. So at least Kostya's board is pretty well synced at the moment. So the move is happening on the camera, and then immediately after that it's happening on the live board. And so that's good. Now we have to wait for Zach to make a move, or rather for Zach's opponent. But as I see, he's not at the board, so he made a move and he played d4. That's the best move. But yeah, as you say, now d4 is maybe it's the best move, so don't get me wrong. But if you want to go for d4, then why play queen a5 first of all? I don't fully understand that, because that always just gives kind of the option for white to take on c3 with a tempo, because the queen trade would heavily favor white in this position. So that will not happen. So Zach's opponent will not trade queens. If he doesn't want to do that, then queen on a5 is maybe slightly misplaced. Although it can go to this a4 square, as we saw, which I liked. So I liked that variation. So maybe queen a5 is not... Queen a5 was definitely not a mistake or something. I just thought it might be a little bit inaccurate, because you did kind of waste a move for queen a5 when you had the chance to play d4 immediately and then after that quickly develop. So maybe it would have been better to play d4 immediately. But also this position looks pretty good for black. The eval bar says it's a little bit better for white, but I think that black will have pretty nice counterplay for the pawn, or maybe even for the two pawns that black is down, and also for the bishop pair, due to the fact that white's king is still in the center. And now with the bishop on f2, it takes so much time to get the king somewhere safe. So if the king wants to end up on h1 or maybe even on g1, you have to make a lot of moves. You have to move the knight, you have to move the bishop, you have to move the king, you have to move the bishop, you have to move the king, you have to move the rook, and you have to move the king. So look at all those arrows, and that was just to get the king 2 squares to the right, because everything is blocked at the moment, and that's really not great. So maybe that just takes too much time. But then you never want to castle here. So this would be a horrible mistake, because after long castles there would actually just be queen a3 check, king has to go to b1, and now queen b2 is checkmate to the white king, and that would be very, very bad. So with the queen on a5, it's not possible to castle the long way. And if that is not possible, then what do you do with your king? Then what do you do? It's actually not easy, so you probably have to stay in the middle for some time at least. And then with the active black pieces in some moves, it will become complicated. And also what we're saying all of the time, look at the time difference. 1 hour 18 minutes for Elia and 45 minutes for Zach. So it's move 15 and he has already spent half of his time again. Look at Kostya. For Kostya it's move 18 and he and also his opponent are above 1 hour. Actually, now have exactly the same time. But yeah, Zach already down more than half an hour, which is pretty problematic. So right now he thinks that it's fine, but he has to spend time in like the next few turns, and then Zach will be the first to be in time trouble if the time usage stays like this, and that's not what you want. That's not what you want at all. So d4 is on the board. And now what to do? what to do. Sorry for that. So let's see. I think I should still. Oh yes, I can still change the title. I will quickly do that. I'm sorry for that. So I will change the title for Zach. I didn't think that I was still able to do that after starting the stream, but apparently I am. Zach versus Elia. Round 6. So copy this and go here. So now I updated the title. Yes. That should be better, right? Yes. Yes. So d4. Now Zach has to spend time here because it's a very complicated position, but also you shouldn't spend too much time. It is very complicated, but oh, he just made a move. Knight takes d4. That makes sense. Basically the only move, so he could have also played it a little bit faster maybe. But yeah, as I said, it's a complicated position. So now black has plenty of moves. So knight takes d4 comes to mind, and then activating the bishop. Maybe also knight d5 is possible to activate the knight, attack the pawn, and then you're also threatening some knight b4 move. Maybe not immediately, but there are a lot of tactical ideas around that move. So knight takes d4. Now I think Elia will take some time, but he could also just play rather quickly to exert some pressure on the clock, because he has an active position and it's important what you play, but also maybe you just want to do a quick move and then make Zach think again. So knight takes d4, and after that it's not obvious for white. First of all, how to recapture. Probably you should recapture with the queen actually, because if you take with the bishop, then there will be this very annoying pin. So after bishop c6, knight f5 is already a threat, putting pressure to the bishop on d4, which will be very hard to defend. And look at black's pieces, like queen very active, bishop very active, knight will be very active, rook very active, rook very active. So all of the black pieces are just basically placed perfectly, which is great. So yeah, that's a very good thing. And it's hard for white to play here. But still you're up a pawn, and in the long term you have this great h-pass pawn. But it is not as easy as it seems. So maybe in a position like, let's go back some moves here, you could think that white has the bishop here, white is up a pawn, white will win this pawn, queen takes c3 will happen, and I think that for like at the first time looking at this, I would think white is having a great position. But then there is this d4 move, and now everything changes. So I think practically speaking, I would prefer to be black actually here. So yeah, knight takes d4 happened, and Ilya immediately takes on d4. So there were some other options, but I think this is the most obvious move. And yeah, bishop takes d4, maybe with ideas of queen takes c3. But yeah, I think black will just sacrifice this pawn also, because also he has nothing to do. Black cannot defend the pawn on c3. That's just not possible. But yeah, like bishop c6 maybe. And now if queen c3, queen a4, we had this line already. That's what the engine suggested. And I think this is hard to play because the knight is coming to d5, attacking the queen, attacking this pawn, and what to do with your king? You can never castle your king, like ever, basically. Probably have to put it to f2 and just leave it there and hope that everything works out the way you want it to. But it's a very concrete position. So now the bishop is attacked, so you probably have to move back. You could also think about castling long way here, actually, which is interesting. And then a move like king b2, and then put your king on a2 or somewhere to kind of be safe. And now you also have the possibility to develop your bishop. And then you retreat your bishop, you trade some pieces, and then it should be very good for white. So if white gets time to coordinate, then it's a very good position for white. So I think in the next 5 to 8 moves, we will see if Zach will struggle a lot in this game, or if he will just probably have a great position. Sorry for that. So, bishop takes d4, played by Zachary Saint. And I think we will get bishop c6. That's the most logical move, because otherwise queen takes c3 comes with a check, attacking the queen, but also the king, and then black would have to trade the queens, after which white would just be probably close to winning, actually, just because those pawns are so strong, and also the bishop pair. So yeah, that's kind of why. So bishop c6 is very logical to block the connection on the c file, and yeah, bishop takes d4. Now, if you don't play bishop c6, I think you're just worse. Maybe knight c6 is also kind of okay, or knight d5 actually. Yeah, knight d5 is also a move, I think. But maybe it's just better to go here and open up the d file, because now the knight can go to f5 and all of your pieces are like so active. So yeah, this rook is like very active. It's a very active piece. Oh, and as Zach moved back, we can see where Kostya's opponent got his fashion from. So there is a guy named Hikaru Nakamura who also really likes to wear pineapple shirts. And Mark Verf, Kostya's opponent today, also is wearing a pineapple shirt, I believe. Or is he? Is that a pineapple shirt chat? Or is that just like some colorful shirt with some kind of plant on there? I don't exactly know. Because Zach is also in the way of the shirt that we have to see. So I'm not sure. Is that a pineapple shirt? Is that a pineapple shirt? That's the question here. I think it is. I think it is. That might actually be not. But yeah, anyhow, if he is wearing a pineapple shirt or if he's not, anyway, he played knight h7. And we had this move earlier in, I think, like 3 or 4 turns ago. I briefly said that this was an idea. So you are opening up the bishop. So bishop d4 is maybe a threat in the future. Right now, after bishop d4, it could still be blocked by bishop e3 or knight e3. So that would be fine for white. But it's important to mention that you still have to keep an eye on that. So Kostya's plan was with knight f1, it was to reroute his knight to f5 or maybe even to h5. But now this is not possible because now there will be bishop d4, pinning the rook, winning an exchange, and then black will probably have an advantage after that. But also, this might not be as bad as it looks on first glance, because this is also hanging right now. Okay, but then there's queen h4, so that's not really hanging. Okay, but still it's a complicated position after that. But there's just no need to complicate the position like that. That doesn't make any sense basically. So yeah, knight g3 will never happen here. Maybe we will see bishop e3 first. Maybe also king h2, king h1, some king move might also be okay. And then the question is, how does black want to place his pieces? Will the knight go to g5? It might, but it's not said that it will. Could also just stay there and then in like some moves after this, then just go to g5 or to f6 back, maybe even to f8 to defend. So the knight has to move in the next like 5 turns. It's not necessary maybe, but definitely possible. So knight g5 comes to mind to put some pressure again on this pawn. You're also putting some pressure from f6, but you can also do it from g5 and then have the bishop open up at the same time. So let's check on Zach's game. We did not get bishop c6, but we got knight d5. So that's interesting. So the idea is that you're attacking the pawn on f4, and while you're doing that, you're improving the position of your knight. So the knight on d5 is perfectly placed, and then you will probably follow up with bishop c6, and then there will still be a lot of tactical ideas evolving around the rook being on the same file as the queen. So that's not completely out of the position, but now it just takes some time to kind of get what you want here with bishop c6 and open up the rook. So that takes a little bit of time, but you're also making a move which is attacking something. So white cannot attack you back. White has to defend that pawn first of all. And there's also some tactic here. So just to show what I mean, after g3, defending the pawn, bishop c6, now there's a threat. If white just ignores everything and goes bishop e2, now there's actually a very nice move for black, which would be knight takes f4. Oh, maybe not. Maybe that's not the best, but I thought knight takes f4, and now if you take back, then the rook will take on g1, and the bishop is unfortunately pinned. So if the bishop takes on g1, you will lose the queen, and here I think black is just completely winning, because the king is still very weak, and the pawn on c3 actually remained alive in this variation. So that's one idea, but apparently there are even other ideas in this position. Ah yeah, knight b4. Yes, that's even better. So knight b4 is attacking the queen, but it's also not the right move. Wow. Okay, so you might have to take on b4, because otherwise, if you go queen d1, then rook takes d4 will happen, and the queen is attacked. If the queen takes back, this is a family fork, a check to the king, and you're attacking the rook, but also more importantly, you're attacking the queen, and you will just lose the game on the spot. So there are all those tricks still in the position. So yeah, g3 is still a pretty good move right now, because this is just hanging and you don't want to lose the pawn on f4, because that's the biggest advantage of your position, that you're up a pawn. So that's great news for you. But black definitely has sufficient counterplay. If black plays well, then there's enough counterplay. But also Zach has to play well, not to be worse here. So right now he should definitely defend the pawn on f4 somehow. And g3 is the most logical move for that. And then also the bishop can appear on g2 at some point. And you might even just trade off the bishop for the knight. And then you win the pawn on c3 and you're up 2 pawns, but your king is still weak. So just to show what I'm talking about, ignore the evaluation for a second here. So in a position like this might be possible, and to reach a position like this would be very good for white, because white is up 2 pawns here. The h and g pawn, which the queen captured on g7 and h7. White still has those pawns and black does not. So this would be close to winning, if not even winning for white. But because of the opposite colored bishops, it's also not obvious. So this is not a textbook win. You still have to fight a little bit here. Okay, but that's also pretty far from the game. Knight d5 has been played, and Zach plays g3 indeed. Look at the time, he's down to 34 minutes and 48 seconds, compared to 1 hour, 11 minutes and 23 seconds. We will see 1-1-1-1-1 in 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1-1-1. The opponent had 1 hour, 11 minutes and 11 seconds. That's 5 ones. I always notice those details which have nothing to do with chess. Always if I'm looking at the clock situation, I see now we have exactly the same time. Now I have 1 second more than him. Now he has exactly 1 hour. But also if I look at games and they are completely different, then I see, oh, they both have a bishop on g5. So I just do these weird comparisons all of the time, and I think I'm just thinking about too many stuff apart from chess, which has nothing to do with chess. So yeah, but as you say, it's very fun to notice like those, I don't want to say stupid things, but they are probably just stupid things. So yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense to just get excited about numbers, but yeah, that's what I'm always doing. Because you have some time during a chess game, you should probably just focus on the game, but you have a little bit of time, and a little bit of time has Kostya, but he plays knight d1, and that's rewarded a question mark by the engine. And knight d1 is making room for the rook, so rook g3 is his plan. But in order to do that, he is taking an eye off of the e4 pawn. So this is attacked one time by the rook, and also only defended one time by the queen. The knight was defending that pawn, and now it's not defending it anymore. So after knight g5, the pawn is hanging. You cannot play rook g3 because the pawn will just be hanging. So knight g5. Then you have to kind of defend the pawn first of all. And it doesn't really matter how you defend it. It will never be possible to move your rook to g3. So after knight g5, it's also possible to take on g5, but then you're giving up your bishop pair, and then there's no counterpart for the amazing black bishop on g7. So if you trade your good bishop, which would help with your kingside attack, you're doing three bad things. So first of all, you're giving up the bishop pair, and that's not great. Then you leave black with the bishop pair, which is kind of the same thing, but this bishop does not have a counterpart and will just be very strong and very dominant throughout the game, especially because of this great e5 outpost, which knights can use, but also the bishop. The bishop can also land on e5. And that would also not, it would not be great to lose this bishop. But then, moreover, you're also kind of fixing black's pawn structure. Right now, those two pawns are a little bit ugly. So they are two separate pawn islands, is what we like to say. So a pawn island is just like the pawns that are connected. So those pawns are on the A and B and C and D file. So this is one pawn island. And if there is would be a pawn on e7, then all of those pawns from f7 to a6 would be one pawn island. But there's no pawn on the e file, so that's why now this second pawn island starts. There's also no pawn here, so black has three pawn islands, and white also has three. So this is the first one, this is the second one, and this is the third one. It's always the least you have, the better it is, because the least you have, the safer your pawns are. So knight d1 has been played, and after knight g5, you really don't want to give up your bishop, because if the bishop takes, the pawn takes back, and now the pawn structure just fixed itself. And I think this would be an amazing position for black, because black is just completely dominant on all of the black squares. Look at this, all black squares are in black's control, and that's not great at all. But we did not get knight g5, we get queen h4, which also makes sense. It's also taking the e4 pawn, so I didn't see that move, but I think it's a great move actually, because you're kind of doing a similar thing to knight g5. You're putting some pressure on e4, but you're doing that while activating your pieces. So now you're starting like this huge attack basically. So all of the black pieces will probably join. The knight will go to g5, bishop to e5, then maybe some f5 will happen, something like that, and there will probably be a kingside attack executed by the black pieces here, and queen h4 is a pretty good move. So the e4 pawn is hanging, and you have to defend it somehow. But the question is, how do you do that? How do you do that? Ah, yes, thank you for reminding me of the moves. If I analyze on the board, then the moves are not updating automatically. So I have to click on the moves every single time. So bishop c6. And yes, as you say, the quickest move that Zach made in some time. He didn't even lose any time while making that move, I think. Yeah, he made that move with 31 seconds. So he lost only 1 second to do this move. So yeah, that's a good thing. And he probably already made up his mind about this like before bishop c6 happened. But it's good that he is playing a fast move right now. Mentally, that's very good because you can't just think for 5 minutes every single turn. That's just not how life works. You don't have unlimited time, so that's just not possible. Also, we see Zach's camera kind of reconnecting, but I think that will be fine. I think that will be fine. So queen c4. The idea is just to step out of the pin on the bishop on d4, because Zach saw that there are ideas with knight b4, knight takes f4. There are so many tactical ideas here that it's just better to step out of the way of this rook. And queen c4 is probably the only move to properly do that, because I think if you go somewhere else, like if you go to e2, then this might be hanging. Oh no, it's actually not hanging, but it just looks very, very wrong to allow the bishop to be not protected anymore. So you have to protect the bishop. You can also not go to e4 because of knight b4. This is a discovered attack. If the queen moves, now you take on d4. The pawn cannot take the knight because your rook will be hanging. If the queen takes the rook, this is the family fork again, which would end the game again. So there are a lot of those tactical ideas here. So it's great that Zach plays queen c4 immediately. It's kind of like the only move if you want to sidestep all of the threats. Maybe the engine also said that another move was fine, but I think practically this is almost like an only move, because there are just so many different threats at once, and it's hard to deal with every single one of them if your queen is still on the d file, which the black rook is already covering. So queen c4 is a good move just to sidestep any threats towards your queen. And then in the next moves you will go bishop g2 probably, and then maybe trade off on d5 in order to win the second pawn on c3. But also you don't have to do that. The only problem is just if you don't, then your king is still in the center, and it will be hard to, it will take time to get to some safe square. So a plan could be bishop g2, king f2, rook b1, king g1. So if you get all of those moves in as white, then it would be very, very good for you. But that's obviously not very easy, and also black will also make moves in the meantime and try to pose as many problems as black can. And yeah, Not easy to deal with all of the threats. So queen c4, and Elia is taking a little bit of time in this position. And yeah, let's go to Kostya's board again. So rook a to f3 has been played. Okay, that's interesting. So that was his idea, because he played this move rather quickly. He already calculated this beforehand. And now the question is, what happens on queen takes e4? Probably white should take. I'm not sure what happens on queen e4. Ah, you could just go bishop d3. Yes. So queen e4, you will go bishop d3, and then there are a lot of threats, and after queen d5, you might be able to take on f7, but also bishop c4 looks very good. So queen e4 would be losing blunder actually, because of bishop d3. And here white is completely winning, because everything in the black position is hanging. This is hanging, and this is hanging, and then after that the king will be incredibly weak. So queen takes e4, not possible right now. But what is possible is knight e5, taking the rook and defending the pawn. But then after knight e5, rook f4 might happen, attacking the queen on h4, and then you have to deal with that issue. Yeah, no, it's not easy. Not easy to play for any side here. So you have to calculate rook e4 also, but I think at the very least there's still bishop d3, but also a move like rook takes f7 should be very, very good. So it's not possible to take on e4 at the moment, and I think this is a pretty decent line for Kostya. I see the eval bar, it says black is better, but it's not obvious at all why black is better here, because Kostya is putting a lot of pressure on this f7 pawn, and Kostya can't if Kostya defended this pawn tactically, then first of all, Mark, his opponent, has to do something about the threat to the pawn on f7. And you have to kind of defend that. Rook e7 maybe, or block f6. f6 is also maybe okay, but then you're blocking your bishop, and then your bishop is horrible, so I think f6 is not great. And now we see rook a f3 has been given a question mark by the engine. So there has to be, and also the eval bar changed its mind. Now it's -1 already, at least almost -1. And yeah, that's not a great thing. Not a great thing. And knight g5 has been played. Wow. Knight g5. Okay, if this works, then it's definitely a great move. So I wouldn't think that that's a good move if I just quickly look at it, because there is bishop takes g5, and then after pawn takes probably, then the pawn f7 is hanging, but Kosya's opponent is arguing that after g4 maybe black will have a strong attack, and let's see what happens. Like bishop takes g5. Now the question is, do you take with the queen or with the pawn? But I think it's rather obvious that you take with the pawn, and now g4 might happen like in the very near future. So yeah, right now the pawn f7 is hanging first of all. If you take though, then g4 maybe. So this is a very brave sacrifice. Or maybe it's also just some good calculation. Ah, knight f4 is possible, maybe. Maybe. I think knight f4 is a good move here. Cutting off the connection between the rooks. And then it's not easy to play from there on out, because the rook will be lost. It doesn't have any squares left. Rook c7 maybe, but I think you should just sacrifice the exchange here, because rook c7 is a little bit passive, and then black will have a big attack. Oh, nice, and thank you so much for RootChess27 for the raid. Thank you so much. You raided with 32 people. Very, very good. So we are, for all the new people, we are doing live commentary for... Thank you very much. Thank you. We are doing live commentary for Zach and also for Kostya, who are both playing a tournament in Italy, Montesilvano. Today is round 6, and Zach is playing with the white pieces on the left side of the screen, and Kostya is also playing with the white pieces on the right side of the screen. And in Zach's game, we actually see king b8, which is a mistake according to the engine, and I don't exactly understand why at the moment, but I'm sure that Zach will show us why. So the only question is, like, how quickly will he be able to make good moves? Yes, this is a classical tournament, so the time control is 90 plus 30. I will actually just copy this and put it into this chat. So we are streaming from multiple accounts at the moment. So we are streaming from the account of Zach, the chess nerd, on which account you are writing into the chat, the Chess Nerd Live. Then we are also live on the Chess Dojo account, which is an account of some more people, but also of Kostya, who is playing in Italy together with Zach. And then also on my account, which can be found using the command in chat. And yeah, it is 90 minutes plus 30 seconds with no additional time. So it's always very exciting at the end, because not even after a lot of moves, we are already seeing like a time scramble. So the games are also not taking that long. Yeah, so Zach's score is 1.5 out of 5. You can see that here on the bottom, where my mouse is right now, below his name tag. He's on 1.5 out of 5, which is okay, because he played some stronger opponents. In the first round, he actually played against Kostya, against his friend, and also traveling partner. And in the first round, they played against each other, and Kostya managed to win. And Kostya is an international master, and Zach has a rating of 2000. So Kostya was the clear favorite, but he managed to win, which was the most likely result in that game. And yeah, so Zach is on 1.5 out of 5. Yesterday he lost to a GM, which was very unfortunate. And he also had a very, very, very unfortunate loss in round 4, where he could have claimed a threefold repetition, but he unfortunately didn't do that. And he wanted to win with only 1 minute left on the clock. That's exactly the case in this 90 plus 30 second time control, that there's just no additional time, and you're just like always in the time trouble, and there's basically nothing you can do. So I think we should get back to the chess. So knight g5 happened, and now Oh, Kostya played a brilliant move. Wow. Wow. Rook f4. What a move. I didn't see that, but now the queen is just lost, no? Rook f4, that's a great move. So knight g5 was a mistake, and now Kostya immediately finds rook f4. And look at that. He got up from the board. I didn't even pay attention. I was telling you about the tournament, and Kostya plays this brilliant move. Rook f4, that's just trapping the queen. So first of all, black can take, and you can take back. But then the queen doesn't have any squares left. So now black has to sacrifice the knight. I'm sorry, black has to sacrifice the knight. And if white takes and queen takes, then here it's a very double-edged position, but this is definitely great news for Kostya right here. Because now this king is open, but also this king is open, and Kostya has a lot of pieces, so that's very good for him. He can play knight f2, maybe even right now. Knight f2 looks like a good move to attack the queen, and the queen has to drop back to d7. That's the only square. And now Kostya can just develop. Or maybe it was not the only square. Wait. No, I think it was. Oh no, but you could have played bishop d4 also, pinning the knight. So that was probably the better move. But yeah, this is great news for Kostya. Kostya plays a brilliant move, and he only spends 3 minutes to find this. So that's very, very good news for him. And he takes and takes happens. And now his opponent Mark is taking some time here. So rook takes f4, the queen is attacked, and the queen is trapped. So there are no squares for the queen. And knight takes h3 is the only move that is not completely losing here. Oh, maybe bishop d4 is also... Yes, bishop d4, what happens there? So bishop d4, that's check first of all. But then what to do? So it's a check, so you have to go out of the way. You cannot block the check, because then the rook is hanging, because this bishop is pinned. That is not possible. Okay, so you have to move, and then maybe the queen can infiltrate. But now the queen looks like it's almost trapped. And after bishop d2, the queen will take on e2. But then there's knight g3, winning the queen. So yeah, I think this, and this. Yes, and now the queen is trapped. The queen is on e2. It should have all of the squares in the world, but the queen is trapped. So yeah, as you say, rook f4. What a move by Kostya. What a move. Let's do an instant replay of that. Here we had this rook af3 move, which was maybe a little bit shaky, but I don't even know why. Yes, I do actually, because of this knight g5 idea. And knight g5 has not been... Oh yes, knight g5 has been played. I'm confusing myself. Yeah, knight g5 has been played. No, but why was this not a good move then? Or maybe it just was a great move. Yeah, no, I think this was... It has been given a question mark, this move, but I don't understand why. I think it's a great move now. Yeah, because of the knight g5, there's a rook f4. That's a brilliant move. Brilliant move. And at least, yeah, knight. No, this has not been played. So from the psychology, it looks like Kostya will win the next game because it's it's always nice when you find like some kind of sacrifice, even if it's not winning or anything. A move like Rook F4 is always just great to play, and maybe Mark even missed that move. I don't know. At least I missed that move. I'm not an international master yet, but yeah, I didn't see Rook F4, so it's definitely possible to overlook moves like that. That's what I wanted to say, because it's not obvious to find that. I think if you play in a classical game, then you should be able to see that, because if you play a move like knight g5, you are just blockading your queen and you're basically putting your queen into a prison, and there is just no way of your queen ever getting out, basically, if the white pieces start to attack the queen. Yeah, so it's possible to see rook f4, and I think Mark saw this move, but maybe he actually didn't see it because he's spending a lot of time right now. And to me, it seems like that knight takes h3 is the most obvious. And yeah, bishop d4 is also fine, but I'm not quite sure about that. Maybe it's not fine. So yeah, as you say, the queen is extremely misplaced. The queen got there because it wanted to the queen got to h4 because it wanted to start this huge attack. I will show that real quick. So this was the position, and Kostya played this knight to d1 move, which looked a little bit weird, and also the engine set is not the best, but practically it makes sense, definitely. And then queen h4 happened, and that putting some pressure towards the pawn on e4, and also it looks like that black will start an attack. And now I think that Mark thought, and also I myself, I thought you have to defend the pawn on e4 with a move like knight g3 or something like that. But this would not be very good for white. Yeah, so I thought that this is better for black a little bit. If you have to make move like bishop f3 and admit your mistake and block your rook and cannot go to g3, then it's not great for you. But here Kostya played this amazing move, rook a to f3. So this was a very, very good move. And after knight g5, now he played the brilliant rook f4. And this is the current position. And now his opponent is thinking about whether it's possible to play bishop d4 or not. But it's just not possible, because if you go bishop d4, then the king will move to the side. And now the problem is your queen is still trapped, and you can not make room for it, because before you were able, in this position, you were able to take here with a check, and now your queen is freed up and the queen can go back. But in this position, after bishop d4 check, the king moves out of the way. Now, if you take on h3, it's not a check anymore, and white would just be able to take the queen and now win the game. And here, if the queen goes to e1, that's what Mark is thinking right now. Then we can actually just attack the queen with bishop d2, and the queen has to take the bishop. That's the only move. And now, after knight g3, the queen is attacked, and the queen will just fall. And after that, it will be bad news for black, because you will just lose the game if you don't have your queen. So we are hoping for bishop d4 check right now, because after bishop d4, Kostya would just be winning, and that would be a great result for him, because then he has very good chances of being the sole leader of this tournament. So that would be very good. Hello, you reached 1500. Congratulations. Congratulations for that. You are happy, yes, as you should, as you should. You're in the right place if you want to learn something. I think both of the streams of the Chess Nerd, otherwise known as Zach, and also the Chess Dojo channel, they are both very nice channels if you want to learn anything. So oh, I'm sorry, I think I just muted myself accidentally. I am sorry for that. But now you're able to hear me, right? I think. I'm sorry. Yeah, now it's okay. Yes, good. Yeah, I accidentally hit the mute button. Okay, let's go over to Zach's game, because there's still this question mark king b8 move. And the question is, why is that a mistake? It looks logical, but maybe it's a little bit too slow. Maybe it's a little bit too slow. So king b8. The idea is probably to play rook c8 and put some pressure on the c file and put the other rook to d8. So if white does nothing, then you go here, and this position would be pretty good for black. But look at this, I played two great moves for black, two improving moves, and it's still completely fine for white. That's telling us a lot about the nature of this position. And the eval bar is sky high for Zach right now. And he played a move, he played bishop d3. Yes, bishop d3. You have to be a little careful that your queen still has enough space, but there will not be a problem with that, because the queen can go to a lot of places in this position. Also, maybe a move like queen c5 was possible. Let's look at that. If you go queen c5 with the idea of exchanging queens, I think that after the queen trade, it's definitely a very good position for you. But I also think that if you don't trade queens after queen a4, that's maybe a little bit unclear. Yeah, queen a4 is probably a good move after queen c5. But we got bishop d3, so we don't have to worry about other ideas. And bishop d3, just developing a piece that can never be wrong. And I think next move we will probably see king f2, and then the rooks are finally connected. So it's move 20 and the rooks are not connected yet. So that's not a great thing. Not a great thing. But if the king moves, then the rooks are finally connected, and that's always the one of the main goals out of the opening, to connect your rooks, because the rooks work best if they work together. So if they're connected, they are way better than if they're just standing alone. And also there are a lot of tactical ideas in positions like this, where the rooks are not protecting each other. So bishop d3 is a developing move. You can also put your bishop to e4, maybe somewhere later in the position, but it's also not necessary, to be honest. So I think king f2 will probably be the next move. After that, the rook will go to b1 or something like that. Maybe this rook can also go to b1, because the threat is queen takes c6. That's at least a threat. And it's good to threaten some things. Always good. I think there's no situation where it's not good to threaten something. So rook b1 definitely makes sense. You're giving up the a3 pawn, not right now, but maybe the next move after that. But that shouldn't be too bad, and I think black shouldn't even consider to take there. Because if the king moves away and then there's a move like rook a1, all of a sudden this black king is in the complete open. So imagine a position where this pawn disappears and then the rook lands on b1. All of a sudden there are these great rooks here, and the bishops are also looking near the king. The queen obviously is still also looking at the king, and there's this huge attack all of a sudden. So that would be disastrous for black, probably. So yeah, I think you shouldn't take on a3, even if it seems like a free pawn at the moment. You shouldn't consider to take there, I think. So bishop d3. Zach is down to 12 minutes though, which is not great. So he's down a lot of time. But Kostya's opponent has been thinking for quite a long time, so that really surprises me, because this bishop d4 variation is pretty simple, to be honest. And in 3 moves, your queen is trapped. And for such a strong player, I think it's possible to see that. And he makes a move. He played bishop d4. What? Bishop d4 has been played. That's just losing. Kostya seems very surprised. Bishop d4. That's blundering the game. And I'm very, very sure that Kostya will see that. Kostya is so sharp. He's in form right now, and he will just go on to win the game. I just wanted to say, a player like that will never go for this line, because it's not too hard to see that your queen will get trapped. But maybe he saw something else in this knight takes h3 line, which he didn't like, so he thought, if this is somehow possible, then I'll go for this. But this is not like a line you should miss. So the king just goes away and your queen is trapped. Like, your queen is attacked and there's nothing to do here. So you have to play queen e1, but then there's just bishop d2. So bishop d2 is most likely what Mark missed. And after bishop d2, the queen is attacked. And again, this is the only move. And now knight g3, the queen is attacked once again, and now there's nothing to do. So I strongly predict that Kostya will be winning in the next 3 moves. So bishop d4, huge blunder, and yeah, double question mark move. And I immediately before I saw this, I wanted to say there's no way that this will happen, but it shows that strong players like Mark and also Kostya, they are also just human, so they make mistakes. Bishop d4 is a huge blunder, and Kostya is completely winning right now. The queen is trapped, and there's no way for the queen to be free ever again. What you could do is you can give up your bishop, but that also completely loses. because of rook takes g4, and now the queen is still attacked, and if the queen goes to h5, now for example rook takes g5, that's a check, and the queen is hanging, and this is just completely lost. So, huge mistake by Kostya's international master opponent, and Kostya has to find this. The good thing is now that Kostya played rather quickly, and he has 40 minutes right now. So he has 40 minutes to only find 3 moves. And if he finds bishop d2, then the game is over, because then he will just win the queen. And I think after queen e1, bishop d2, we might even just see a resignation. And now, if you look at Kostya's opponent, I think that he realized it. He's kind of covering his facial expressions with his hand, and I think he realized that he made a huge mistake. And huge it is for Kostya, because if he wins this, he's on 5 out of 6, and his performance will be amazing, and he will probably be the sole leader. There's only one man who can stop him, which is his opponent, GM opponent, Daniel Leal from Spain. He is also on 4 out of 5 right now, and if he is winning, then they are in shared first place. But that would still be a great place to be in for Kostya. So bishop d4, huge blunder, and after king h1, the game is effectively over. And this is very, very great. And I think Kostya will be so happy after he is winning. And oh, look at that, he wanted to make a move, but I think some Russian chess teacher told him to sit on his hands. Like Kostya is, he has to make king h1. He wants to make it right now. He's definitely seeing that that's just winning, because I think he is tactically very, very strong. Technically, he might even be on a GM level, at least from what I've seen. Maybe you can correct me in chat if you disagree with that, but I think tactically he is very strong. And that's why he's also playing pretty quickly, because he can calculate the tactics very fast. So I think king h1 is obviously still very on his radar, but it's also just like the only logical move. So you can play like knight f2, but yeah, that does not make sense. You cannot go king h2, because then bishop e5 will pin the rook, and now you're actually losing, because the rook will just be captured, and you can also not go g3 to trap the queen, because the pawn is just hanging and then you're lost. So yeah, king h2 would be another, maybe even a worse blunder than bishop d4. But yeah, king h1 is the only logical move. So he plays a move. King h1 on the board. King h1. One move played, only 2 more to go. Maybe even only 1 more move to go. So let's see if Mark immediately plays queen e1, or if he takes his time here. Yes, he is extending his arm, and he wants to play queen e1, and queen e1 he plays. And now bishop d2 will win the game. I think if Kostya plays bishop d2, he will immediately resign, basically. I'm actually not sure if he has realized that he's losing. I think Kostya has realized that he's winning. I think he has. It would be very great. It would be very, very great. But that remains to be seen. So bishop d2 winning on Kostya's board right now. I think Kostya knows this, but you have to make sure. Like, he has 35 minutes on his clock, so he has all the time in the world to calculate everything. But there is just not a lot to calculate here. There's just bishop d2, and after that the queen is completely trapped. So maybe Mark overlooked this move, or some kind of knight jump, or that the knight is defending one square, because here the knights are on f1 and on d1, and that's usually not the case, so it's easy to overlook that the knight is protecting a square or something like that. So maybe something like that actually happened. But bishop b2 is just completely winning, and Kostya has to play this. We will also get back to Zach's game, but I think that Kostya will play bishop d2 in the next 2 minutes. Maybe not. Maybe he's also just enjoying himself. That's also just nice. You have the time, you know you're winning, and you can, and I think you also should spend 15 minutes here, because maybe 10 is enough, but if you know you're winning, you might as well just make sure that you're actually winning, because maybe there is some detail that you're missing. In this case, there's not. And bishop d2 is not hard to see. So the queen is on e1 and has almost no squares, only b4 and a5. And to cut the queen off from there, it makes a lot of sense to just go bishop d2, and also that's attacking the queen. So that's the most logical move here, and you have to calculate this. And yeah, I think if this is like in a puzzle rush, you just kind of play bishop d2. You don't exactly calculate, but this could be a puzzle rush. Puzzle. It's definitely possible. A position like this is in puzzle rush. So this is not very difficult, I think. You just attack the queen has only one move, and then you trap the queen. And then the game is over. So bishop d2 is the move we're waiting for. Kostya really wants to make the move. He puts his hands below the desk, but he wants to make it, and he checks the score sheet, and he knows he is winning. I think I can see that. And he's also, the way he's leaning in, it looks like he knows that he's winning. And that would just be a great result. 5 out of 6. What a tournament. What a tournament. And I'm very sure that Kostya will see this. If Kostya does not find this, that would be like so disappointing. Like that would be crazy. Because I think if you don't play bishop d2, then you might be worse. But I think he played it. Yes, bishop d2 on the board. Brilliant move. Kostya Kavutskiy plays bishop b2, the second brilliant move in this game, and the queen is attacked. And now I think his opponent will just resign. Kostya takes a sip out of his water bottle, indicating that he's very happy with his position, as he should be, because he's completely winning. There's nothing left to do. After queen takes e2, knight g3 will just trap the queen. Kostya will win the game, be on 5 out of 6, and be completely happy. So Mark has not resigned yet, but he will. There's nothing to play for here. You can sacrifice your queen, but there shouldn't be enough compensation. So maybe it's a little bit too early to resign. And also, in a position like this, only on move 24, maybe you don't want to resign. But it's a position where it's kind of clear that you will lose no matter what. because if you lose the queen, okay, he plays on, which makes sense. But okay, after knight g3, you will lose your queen, and after that, white just has a completely winning position, and a knight will land on f5, and the king will just get checkmated. So I think if, like after knight g3 and queen takes, I think if there was a pawn on g7, a black pawn on g7, then it would be completely different, because then the the king on g8 would be safe, and then there would also be no material advantage anymore, because right now Kostya has the queen for a rook and a bishop, which is 9 points of material versus 8 points of material. So the material advantage is not huge, but in like a normal position, you basically win with the queen against rook and the bishop in like 75% of the time, I would say, in just like a normal position with no weaknesses, and I don't know, 3 against 3 on each side of the board, something like that, you win a lot of times. But here it's even better than that, because the black king is very weak. It's a very, very weak. And knight g3 has been played, by the way. Imagine Kostya plays bishop d2, but then doesn't play knight g3. That would have been crazy. That would have been completely stupid and would never happen, but imagine, just imagine that will happen. So knight g3, the queen will get trapped, and Kostya played such a great game. It was amazing. I think his accuracy might not be like that impressive, because the game was pretty double-edged and pretty complicated. So maybe the accuracy itself is not that impressive, but maybe it actually is. I'm not sure. Okay, but knight g3, and now the question is, does Mark play on or does he resign? I think in a classical game I would play on here, because no one has ever won from just resigning. But also sometimes it's just best to just resign. But here it's kind of in the middle. Like, I think it's pretty clear that Kostya will win this game, which is great. And I'm not sure if it's like 100% obvious that Kostya will win this game, but it kind of is, in my opinion. Because white would just have this huge attack towards the king, and there's just nothing to do, basically. And also the black pieces are not very well coordinated yet. So yeah, that's kind of like the way it is. And we've been talking a lot about Kostya's game, so right now I'll go over to Zach and see what's going on there. First thing I'm noticing is that he has more time on the clock than he had when I last checked. So that's great. That's very great. Okay, rook c8 has been played, and now Zach went for queen c5. Oh, and his opponent exchanged queens. What? But that's horrible. That's horrible decision. I do not understand that at all. Yeah, no, I don't know why you would ever play like this. Because now Zach is also close to winning if he's not winning. Like bishop takes c5. No, why did he do that? Why would you exchange queens in that position? That's not a great chess move. Like the whole idea behind black's position is that you play for counterplay. You down a pawn and white has the bishop pair, So black wants to create some counterplay. So queen a4 comes to mind here to put some pressure, and also now there's an idea of playing b6, but also just retreating with your bishop to some bishop d7, and then this bishop is hanging. So a lot of moves come to mind here, and that's the whole idea, that white king is weak, is in the center, and it's very hard to improve that. And black wants to play for activity and go for an attack and attack the king and play active moves. But he exchanged the queens. And look at the eval bar spike up. But even without the eval bar, you would know that this is like great. White has the bishop pair. White is up a pawn. The king is actually now, it's better that the king is in the center than if it would be on c1 or g1, because now it's closer to the middle of the board, and it's just a great position. And also, not like in the other rounds, Zach has some time left. If Zach would be on 1 minute again, then it would be different, but here he's on 13 minutes, and that's plenty of time. And I think even if he would be on 3 minutes, he still has great winning chances, because the position is very easy all of a sudden. It was always this very complicated position, but then all of a sudden it became very easy to play, and just a game for true results, definitely. So Zach can never lose this game. Like, at least what he can do at the very least is exchange this bishop for this knight, and then it will be, yes, thank you, then it will be an opposite colored bishop endgame, which you can never lose. But Zach will keep his bishop, keep the bishop pair, and just run his pawn up the board. You can push your pawn and just put your pawn on h7, and then push the next pawn, something like this, and that is completely winning. Completely winning. Thank you so much for the sub. Shivaita, thank you so much. Best football. Kostya is the best football player in Maya. I saw that Kostya plays football for the first time. Is that right? I think I read something like that on some story. So Kostya is the best football player in Maya. And Kostya might also be the best chess player in Maya right now. Queen takes d2, and after queen takes d2, he is up a piece. Bishop e5 though. Bishop e5, I did not calculate that far. The rook is hanging, and if the rook moves, then the knight is hanging. Kostya immediately plays h4, and this is a great move, taking the knight. And now if the bishop takes on f4, the idea is to take here with the queen, and the knight is hanging. And if you go knight h7, you can decide if you want to play knight h5 or take on h6, but everything is completely winning, because there will just be like some checkmate very, very soon, and also the knight will go to f5, and this is completely lost. Completely losing. There's nothing to do here. So h4, great move. Knight h7 has been played. And now the rook can drop back to f3. And then you're not losing any material. And then the knight will go to f5. And once the knight lands on f5, it's very, very close to being completely over, because then only a few moves from there will be a checkmate. So if this knight is on f5, the queen takes on h6, then the game is over. So both players are winning all of a sudden. Zach is winning all of a sudden. Kostya is winning because of this bishop d4 blunder, but also Kostya played this amazing rook f4 brilliant move. So yeah, Kostya really deserved it today, and Kostya is completely winning, but such is Zach. Zach also played a very good game. Only thing, as a lot of times, his time management has not been perfect. So it remains to be seen what exactly happens here. But look at this. Zach can just make a lot of easy moves and slowly advance his pawns and at some point push his pawn up the board. And I think Zach wins this like 95% of the time. Maybe even more. Maybe even more. And yeah, Kostya can play rook f3, but I think even if you sacrifice the exchange, I think you should also be winning. Like a move like knight h5, giving up the exchange, but you're threatening all kinds of mates and stuff like that. So yeah, pretty unnecessary, but rook g3 should just be good enough. And let's check with the engine. If the engine has an immediate knockout blow. What? What is that move? Knight f2? What? Why would you ever play knight f2? I would have never in a million years guessed that. If you give me 10 hours in this position, I wouldn't even think about knight f2, I think. Why? Knight f2? And now if you, like, I don't know. What's the plan? Like, what's the idea behind that? Why knight f2? If you play like knight h5, okay, now it's not so clear anymore. Okay, I don't understand this knight f2 move. That's like so weird. Just to improve the placement of the knight or what? But how is that like so good? Yeah, I don't understand it at all. Like I don't know. But if knight f2 is winning in this position, then anything is winning. So rook f3 is also just completely winning, I guess. Now there is some activity with like bishop g4, but the rook will just sidestep. Ah, okay, yeah. Maybe go to a3. And then, okay, I can see why. What happened? Oh, queen f2 has been played. So Kostya, that's very instructive. So he is up a little bit of material right now, and he could have just saved his exchange, but he just says, no, I don't care about the exchange. I will give it up. I will sacrifice it. And if the bishop takes, now the point is that the black squares around the black king are just way too weak. So the knight will go into f5, the queen will take on h6, and then it will be a checkmate. Even if not, the knight on f5 is just way too active. So he doesn't even take, he plays rook f8, but now Kostya plays knight e3. The knight will jump into f5, and it's another brilliant move. Okay, I think I would. This is not like this is the third brilliant move for Kostya. I think in this position a lot of moves are winning, but 93, the third brilliant move for Kostya in this game. So that's great news. Like he's playing such a good game. He's like in form and very in form at the moment. So yeah, maybe it's the pineapples. Maybe it's the pineapples, yeah. B5 has been played. His opponent is desperately trying to create some kind of counterplay. But now knight f5. Maybe even this knight is better to put on f5 because then you're threatening this. So yeah, after knight g to f5, I think we will just see a resignation maybe. You can also play king h8. But there are just so many good moves to choose from. it's like completely over, then you might as well save your rook, but you don't even have to. You can also just take on h6, and yeah, this is just losing. Like there's nothing happening here. And if Kostya wins, then he will be on 5 out of 6 in such a strong tournament. 5 out of 6, and he played against 2 GMs and 1 IM, and that's a crazy good result. Okay, and I will refresh Kostya's live feed because there has been some lag there, and we don't want to miss the resignation. Now I have to be careful that I'm not spoiling anything because there is still the 15-minute delay, and that would be a little bit sad if now the live stream doesn't work anymore. Okay, let me refresh it once again. Yeah, I'm not sure actually. Okay, we can still see Kostya on Zach's cam, so he is still playing at the moment. And the delay is... Why is there half an hour of delay? What? Okay, I have no idea what is happening here today. I don't know why... Okay. I'm very sorry for that, but I really don't know what is going on here. So this is the current live cam, which matches the live board. And Kostya plays a5. Also, the Russian chess teachers would be very proud. Kostya is not allowing any kind of counterplay. He could have just went on to win the game because there's nothing here. But a5 is a very classy move, not allowing anything, just keeping this file closed. And yeah, this is completely over now. And the rook has also just been hanging for like the last 3 moves. But yeah, if you take it, it's lost. If you don't take it, it's lost. So yeah, that's the way it is. Unfortunately, we can't see him though. I do not really know why, and that's a little bit sad. So yeah, I will completely close. Does that make sense? No, I will just put it there and then open it up once again. Yeah, I'm revealing everything, and now I put it here, and this can go there again. Okay, and then I have to, okay, I'm not sure why it's not working anymore. I'm not sure why it's not working. This is not great. Like, I really don't know. Okay. Yeah, I have no idea. c4 has been played, and now we will see knight g to f5. Yeah, we can see him on Zach's camera, but it would be better to see him on his own camera. But yeah, maybe that's just not happening right now. Then I will just remove it from the stream. And if it's working again, then I'll add it back in. But right now it's not working, and I don't know why. Maybe Kostya ended. No, that wouldn't make any sense if he ended the stream. then it would still be visible to me. So yeah, I don't know. Knight g to f5 played by Kostya though, and he will be winning very shortly after this. I will go here. Okay. Yeah, now it should be like the actual live feed, I think. Knight g to f5 has been played. Meanwhile, Zach is also completely winning. He is preparing to push all of his pawns up the board and just outplay his opponent, and then he will be winning. So everything is looking like that we will have 2 wins again today, which is very, very good. Very, very good. And yeah, I'm very excited for that. Bishop takes f5. Hello, Quibi. I'm doing very, very good because I have the chance to cover those great games which are both about to conclude. So this is some great stuff here. Very, very good. So I'm doing amazing right now. And how are you? How are you doing? For me, it's always special if someone writes into my own chat. Okay, and Zach's. Oh no, Kostya's stream has been ended, and that's why we will not be able to see him anymore. Yeah, so the stream has been ended. Okay, so the game is over, which is good. Which is good. And I will quickly check if he wrote something. No, he did not yet. Okay. So the stream is over, so I think we will not be able to see him. I will try that one more time. Oh no, actually now it's working. Now it's working. Okay, I just have to put this again. I don't know what happened there, but now it seems to be working once again. Then, yeah, this is the live footage. So let's see. The stream ended at, so we have to go to 2:20. Oh no, a little bit more here. So the camera's back, which is good. I'm sorry for that. I have no idea what just happened there. I really don't know that. But now it's working again, which is good. Oh, and we get rook takes f5. Okay, I thought he would take with the knight. Maybe he thought after knight take, then you can maybe take the rook and go here. And now it's obviously completely winning. So everything is winning. You can even take on d6 probably, and this is hanging, everything is hanging. Okay, but he takes with the rook, which is also completely fine. Game will also conclude, and now we know that Kostya will finish within the next 15 minutes. So yeah, he will be done with his game very shortly from now. Rook takes f5, and meanwhile on Zach's board there are also some moves coming in. So right now the pawn on h5 is hanging, and bishop e2 dropping back to defend the pawn. And now the only question is, what exactly is your plan? How do you want to position your pieces, and how do you exactly want to play for a win? Like, you are winning, so what's your winning plan? Not how you want to play for a win, but how do you want to win? That's the question I was looking for. So maybe you can start by putting your bishop on f3, and maybe he's actually trying to do that right now. So the bishop can definitely go to f3, and then you can play bishop e3, and if you trade off all of the minor pieces and just end up in this rook endgame with two pairs of rooks, that would be completely winning, because white will go g4, rook h1, g5, and h6. I think, at least that's probably smart to do that, and just completely restrict the black rooks, and you have a protected passed pawn on h6, which is also the pawn you have for free. So yeah, that's just a great asset, that pawn. So if you were able to trade all of those pieces, I think that would make your life even easier, because also if your pawn is protected on h5, you can reroute your rooks and try to attack the pawn on c3 and just collect that, and also put your rooks on the d file or something. So the most obvious endgame here is if all of the pieces get traded off except the pawns. That would be completely winning for Zach. So then he just has this pawn, which is right now would just run through, but even if the king is on h6, then it's still completely winning, because after g4 there's nothing to do. The black king has to stay in front of this pawn, and the white king would just collect every single of one of the black pawns. So if Zach manages to trade all of the pieces, it's completely over. Now we see bishop a4 attacking the pawn on c2, and the question is, how do you defend that? You could go back to d3, but that's not what you want, because if black also goes back, you achieve nothing. So that's not what you want to do. And maybe you don't even have to defend it. Maybe you can actually play bishop f3. Okay, rook c1 looks a little bit passive, but it's completely fine. There was also this tactical justification with bishop f3. So it was possible to play bishop f3, because now after bishop takes c2, there will be bishop takes e5, and if pawn takes, now there's e6, check to the king, and the bishop will take the rook in the corner and win the exchange, and then white still has all of those great passed pawns, and that would just be game over. So bishop a4, and now Zach plays rook c1. Rook c1 on the board. Okay, and now the question is, how does he want to make progress? He has to protect the pawn on f4 and then push and push. So his plan is to push. That's what he wants to do. He really wants to push. And we still have like some more delay than we had just a second ago. Like, I don't understand why the live stream is like always falling behind. I don't know. The bishop just drops back to c6, and Zach goes for bishop e3. That's a great move, and black can take the bishop, but then after that white will just push the pawns and bishop d3, push the pawn even further and just win the game. So bishop e3 is a great move played by Zach, because in the next turn he will play g4, because now the pawn on f4 is defended. So g4 will happen, g5 will happen, and h6 will happen. And after that it will be completely losing. So Zach will win this game. I'm pretty sure about that. Now he said it, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that he will win today, because there has to happen a lot that he will. If he doesn't win, then there really has to happen a lot. Bishop drops back to e3. Very good move. Very nice technique shown by Zach. And Kostya, in the meantime, is taking some time here to make sure to find the best continuation. And he just played rook takes e5. Wow! Another sacrifice. What a game by Kostya. First of all, he sacrificed his rook. Then he played another brilliant move where he sacrificed his bishop. Then he sacrificed the exchange. And then he sacrificed another exchange. He sacrificed 4 things in one game. Rook takes e5. Wow. Wow. What a game. If he takes the rook, then he probably wants to play knight f5. Okay, but this is a little bit tricky, maybe. Maybe the threat is this and checkmate. Maybe black can go here to stop that. But also white can somehow start to pick up all of the pawns. So this and this will just fall. Like you can go queen g3, take on d6, take on e5. And I think that should just be winning. Rook takes e5 is an interesting move. Maybe it's a little bit unnecessary, but if you calculate till the end, then it's probably just a great way to convert, because Kostya spent some time. That's always the most important thing. I think he could have also played knight g4 and just attacked the pawn on h6, and yeah, after that it should also be very close to being over. So yeah, but here's after rook e5. Is rook takes e5 on the board? Wait, let me check. Rook takes e5. It's very hard for me to see. Chat, can you see what's happening on the board? Like, do you know if he already played rook e5 or if he didn't? I don't know. I am not sure, actually. I'm really not sure. So rook takes e5 has been played. Rook takes e5. That's a great move. Like, he sacrificed so many things in this game. Rook takes e5 has been played, so it's on the board. Okay. So we will see the resignation on the camera first, and after that we will see it on the live board. So I will just quickly write to Kostya, because he should be done with his game. Um, so there's unfortunately no command for Zach's rating, I believe, but I can tell you what his rating is. So you can see that in the above his board on the left side, below his name tag. So he is 2013. That's his current rating. We get f takes e5, knight f5, and the attack will just be too strong. You only have two pieces to attack, and there are two defenders, but the king is just so weak, and all of the pawns are just like completely weak, and yeah, that's why it's just completely over here. So there's not much to do, not much to do, but Kostya has to be a little bit careful. So this is not like 100% obviously winning, but I think Kostya will definitely win this game. But he has to be like precise. Maybe only a little bit, but somehow he has to be precise. Because if you just make some moves and just plays like king h2, king h3 or something, just something that doesn't make too much sense, and black gets time to consolidate and kind of protect everything, then it's not as easy, maybe. So, yeah, like, let's just say you even make one quiet move, and now there's rook f6, maybe. Okay, but there's still like queen a7, and everything is hanging. And it should just be winning fairly easily. But what I want to say is you have to be a little bit careful that black is not consolidating. And move has been played. Oh, and now the stream is over. Okay. That's not great. I don't know why that happened. I really can't tell you. Okay. That's new. That's new for me. Okay. So the stream is over and Kostya is still playing. Yeah, that's okay. Maybe Kostya has not finished his game yet. Hmm. Okay, what? Now Queen v3 has been played. That's a good move. King h8 is the only move now. And then I think knight takes d6 should probably just win on the spot. Probably, because then both of those pawns will be lost. And I think then white even has this pass pawn and it can just throw it up the board and it will be very hard to not be losing. And Zach also played a move. a6 has been played. g4 on the board. b5. The opponent is trying to create something, but Zach immediately plays g5. Look at this. Zach is playing quick moves. Zach spent 15 seconds, 13 seconds, 34 seconds. Look at that. Zach is playing quick moves. And if Zach is playing quick moves, then it's definitely a sign that he is sure about his position. Next he will go h6, Or bishop d3. So you might just win on the spot here. So rook h7 is forced. You can play rook g6 maybe. Oh no, then you just take. h7, h6 immediately played. Look at this. Zach calculated every single possibility in this game. h6 has been played. And bishop d3 is the threat now, just trapping the rook. So this rook has to move somewhere now in order to make space for that rook. But if we have a move like rook c8 or something, I don't exactly know, but just bishop d3 and now even f5 probably, because you cannot take. So rook d8 was a little bit stupid. But also like rook d8, bishop d3, and everything is winning. Like you can even put your bishop here first of all. So you just have all of the time in the world. And this is just the dream position, dream come true. I think even if this pawn on h6 would be gone, then Zach would still fight for a win. But then it would be a lot harder actually. But with this pawn, it's just completely winning. h6 has been played, and knight d6. Oh, what? Knight d6? Knight d6 is a mistake. Oh my god. Okay, he plays rook g7, and now it's... Oh my god. I did not think that... What was there? Like, how is this not... What? Why is this equal? Is there some kind of perpetual? No, I don't see it. What? 96 is a mistake. 96 is a mistake. Rook g7. And now queen e5. Also missed opportunity. It's a draw again. What? No way. No way. There's no way. Rook up. No. Oh my god. And knight f6. No. Oh, this is so bad. Knight f6. And oh my god. Yeah, Kostya overlooked this, and now it's a draw. Oh my god, this is so bad. This is so bad. So the problem is that this is a fork, and oh my god, the queen moves away, knight g4, and if the king goes here, then there's actually just knight f2 check, and the next move rook h1 is checkmate. But if the king goes here, then there's just knight e3 check, and here it would be checkmate again. And this is the perpetual. Oh my god. Kostya rushed a little. How much time did he spend for knight takes 6? 2 minutes. How much time did he spend for queen takes e5? 44 seconds. He probably made up his mind even before he played knight d6 that he will play queen takes e5. But this is so sad for Kostya. This is unbelievable. Oh my god. This is heartbreaking for him, and it's so tough to come back from that. Okay, knight e7. Bishop d3 has been played. Knight g6. And now Zach played rook h3. And Zach is showing some great technique here. So I think he will just pick up this pawn first of all, and then he will be up 2 pawns, and then it's just completely winning. So yeah, Zach will be winning. I also thought Kostya will win, but for Kostya it was a little bit different. That's exactly what I meant, and also what you mean. When you have limited material, you have to be careful not to allow any kind of counterplay, and that's also exactly the same idea that I said. I also wanted to play Queen G3, take on D6, take on E5. I thought this would be completely winning, but unfortunately here after knight f6, knight g4 will happen, and yeah, that's just heartbreaking. And Kostya will spend some time here, but there's nothing left to do because this is a fork and you have to do something against that. But if you move your queen, then it's just this perpetual. Yeah, this is so bad. Now there's actually nothing left to do. Yeah, this is horrible. And we have to hope that Kostya comes back from this. So mentally, this is very tough. Very, very tough. Yeah. Knight f6. Yeah, but what a trick though. Like, this is why you have to focus until the end. This is why you have to focus until the end. Kostya told me yesterday that he is sometimes maybe playing pretty fast so that he is not in time trouble. But today I think that was to his disadvantage. I think he played a little bit too fast actually. But yeah, I'm not sure what exactly the issue was. He's also just a human. He can miss stuff too. He is an international master, but his opponent missed bishop d2 and he missed here knight f6. So bishop d2 was a far more serious blunder, but this is very heartbreaking for Kostya because now there is just nothing to do, and he would have been on 5 out of 6 and probably be the sole leader. I don't know what's happening in the game of Daniel Leal. Maybe someone in chat can check what's happening there. But yeah, now it will just be a perpetual, and Kostya will not be the sole leader. And that's very hard. So chess is such a hard game. And yeah, it's just hard. Zach, by the way, I believe can win on the spot. No. Oh no, maybe not. Okay, so everything is winning, obviously. But I think his rook on c1 could be improved. So like rook d1 first of all. And that's what he does. Rook d1 has been played. Now, a move like bishop e4 is just a threat right now. But everything is a threat right now, so yeah, the only thing you shouldn't do is take on g6. Let's just try that. I think if you take on g6 and the pawn takes back, it's immediately 0, 0, 0. Let's try. Oh no, it's still winning. Okay, probably this pawn is a little... Okay, this is completely unnecessary, but... Okay, I believe at some point you will probably push f5 and create a passed pawn. But yeah, Zach would never do that. He plays rook d1, which is a good move. And that's basically the end of the story. So rook d1. Yeah, rook d1 has been played. And Zach will be winning very shortly. So, what's the position for Kostya? Nothing has happened, and it will be a draw. That's so sad for him. He was winning for every single move of the game, and we will see some moves. And Queen d4 has been played, and now Knight g4 will happen, and then it will just be a draw. This is so sad for Kostya. It's unbelievable. You drew, yeah. Yes, I can understand that you're sad, and yeah, that's just like so heartbreaking. You played such a great game. Yeah, yeah, exactly. It was like so nice. I think you had three brilliant moves, and also rook takes e5 was still another very good move. Maybe not necessary. I think a lot of things were winning, but yeah, you played a great game, and yeah, it's very unnecessary. Yeah, I don't know, like all of a sudden the stream just ended, and yeah, I have no idea why that happened. But yeah, speaking of ending the stream, unfortunately, I will also have to go now because I have a chess tournament at my club right now. And last year I won the tournament, and now I have to defend my title. Yeah, now the draw is on the board. Yeah, Zach will most likely win. And what am I supposed to do with the stream? Should I just leave it running, or should I end the stream? I can just leave it on, I guess. But yeah, you tell me. Yeah, Kostya was so unfortunate. Such a great game. Such a great game. Okay, so I won't leave it on. Is it not possible for you to turn it off? If you log into my restream, maybe? Oh no, because you need my OBS. Okay. Yeah, okay, then. Yeah, Kostya, I'm so sorry. Still a great tournament, but obviously not what you wanted from this game. And yeah, Zach will most likely win. And I will have to go to my own chess tournament now. But tomorrow I will be back for the last round that I am covering. So tomorrow, same place, same time. And yeah, with that, I will end the stream and see you guys tomorrow.